And with that, we are live. Welcome to another edition of Astro Weather. I'm your Astro Weatherman, Robert Phoenix. And look at that. We even have the date here just in case you have forgotten it. It is 10/24/23. And, well, let's just say there's a lot of heavy weather going on right now. What do I have? I got my cap in the background. Let me remove my cap. The Virgo in me says remove the cap. Here we go. You know why? Because it will detract from this beautiful background. You may say, or you may ask yourself, where is this place? Could it be, I don't know, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, perhaps South Dakota, Montana? No, the answer would be Iran. Yes, this is sunrise in Chabak, which is a place in Iran. So we like to take these beautiful sunrise pictures from all over the world to inspire you at the beginning of the day, or if you're ending your day, they could pass for sunset, right? So just insert sunset, and you probably wouldn't know if I didn't tell you that this would be a sunrise versus a sunset. But that's one of the reasons why I put these pictures up as part of the thumbnail. They're supposed to be inspiring and beautiful and give you a sense of joy and wonder at the beginning of the day. And I chose this one specifically because of what's cooking in the Middle East, unfortunately. So there you go. People all around the world experience certain things together, or they may not necessarily experience them together, but the sun will rise. The sun will rise in every single part of this realm, right? Just the way it is. We all have that as part of our shared experience. Just like it rises here in Texas, it rises in Iran, it rises in Ukraine, it rises in Russia. By the way, there's a rumor which I'm going to cover on 15 minutes that Vladimir Putin had a heart attack and was theoretically resuscitated. So we are in the realm of innuendo, war, the rumors of war. We are literally heading into the dark phase of the zodiac, right? We are clearly in Scorpio now, and when we move into Scorpio, it's better be a deep diver, and we'll do our best to bring the high beams here, but it's going to get very, very difficult to ascertain and determine what is true or not true, especially when events start to speed up. And they do seem to be speeding up rather exponentially. So with that, let's get into the astro weather. Let's see what it looks like for the rest of us here. All right. What do we got? Here we go. All right. That looks like the right chart. So let's get into it. By the way, thank you for being here. All right, so here we go. The sun finally ingresses into Scorpio, zero Scorpio. It's about as scorpionic as it gets. And then there's Mercury right on the other side. So Mercury's overtaken the sun. So now with Mercury out front, what are we doing? We're using our curb feelers, right? We're using our sonar. We're using our radar. We're doing everything in our power to sense into the environment. Unfortunately, with Scorpio, usually what Scorpio is doing is trying to determine where the threat is. If there's any sign that's hypervigilant, I think the two most hypervigilant signs would be Scorpio, with three. The three most hypervigilant signs would be Scorpio, Cancer, and Virgo, because they're all invested in some form of control, right? Virgo wants to control its reality so it can be healthy and everything has a certain order to it, right? Cancer is into control because Cancer wants to make everything safe and secure, right? Scorpio is into control because it can derive power from control. So those are three different loci of control. And here we go. We have Mercury out front. So we're looking at what's around us, what's in the environment. And we're still in this square with Pluto, right? So we're really attenuated right now, just in terms of like what could go wrong, or who's the one that's pulling the strings behind the curtain. There's a lot of that energy happening, right? Then we have the South Node, and we have Pallas. Pallas is eventually going to conjunct the South Node, and either through the ingress of Pallas or the regress of the South Node, right? They're going to come together, and that's going to be a very interesting time. So for you on a personal level, Pallas in Libra is all about pattern recognition, and you get to see how people show up in your life and relationship. And it's going to get closer and closer and closer. But it's not just, I mean, we're living in a very transpersonal time. Once the sun goes into Scorpio, we are into transpersonality. So everything from here until Aries is about the collective, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, or you're in a different time zone. It's the nature of the beast, right? So everything from here until Aries is the collective time, and this is usually a time when things like governments and corporations, intelligence agencies, they want to push control. They want to push the narrative because this is when the collective is shaped. You understand what I'm saying? Doesn't mean that there isn't a personal value to any of these aspects. There are. But once we move from here into the seventh house, right, going into the eighth house, this is Scorpio territory. And this is where the transpersonal area of the chart is. Eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th house. Anything below the horizon is personal. Anything above the horizon, with the seventh house being the intermediary between the personal and transpersonal, plays that role. Like it's Libra, balancing the bottom of the chart, balancing the top of the chart, balancing the inner life and the outer world. That's the role and the function of the seventh house. So here we have kind of a combination, right, of Libra, Scorpio, leaning heavily into Scorpio. But the pattern recognition is going to come, and it also deals with things like justice, balance, restitution. And, what you're going to hear here as we move closer to whatever this presidential election is going to be, you're going to hear more talk about things like reparations. I just put it in your book. Robert F. Kennedy's talking about reparations right now. He's got his own sort of roadmap to reparation and social justice. So if we have any semblance of of an election, and you have people that are going to theoretically primary Joe Biden, and but he moved over into the independent party, so he's an independent. But you'll have Marianne Williamson, and you might have Cornel West. Cornel West will be all over it, right? Marianne Williamson might address it. So will Biden, whoever Biden is, if Biden is even running at that time, will they address it? I guarantee you it'll be on the table, right? So on the personal level, you're looking at patterns in your own life with a relationship, who's being treated fairly, unfairly, right? All the scales are sort of being balanced out here. And it'll be a very interesting time in the weeks ahead. Now, we do have a ton of Scorpio. We have a series in Scorpio. And that's, did you know that mother scorpions carry their young on their back? Like I've seen pictures. I've been getting into these pictures of scorpions, and mother scorpions it's like these little, like tiny egg sacs of their little scorpions, and they put them on their back. It's weird thinking that a mother scorpion could be maternal, right? It's like, get on my back, kids. I got you. Till you hatch and those little stingers come out, right? So Ceres is all about being maternal. It's all about nurturing. And so in Scorpio, what are we nurturing? This is a really important question. What are you nurturing? Are you nurturing? Look, I'm not a guy that's going to tell you, oh, don't have dark thoughts, don't have negative thoughts, because that's nearly impossible. That is nearly impossible. I remember back in the 90s when I was trying to use affirmations to bleach out my negative thoughts. Didn't work real well. Just saying. And I bought books by the people who were doing all the great affirmation work during that time. I was like, it's not really working. Those thoughts are kind of still there. The sound in my head goes away for a little bit, right? So you can't really bleach them out. This is what we've been talking about since Scorpio was on the horizon, is this whole thing with the shadow, right? This whole thing so the series here is about dealing with your fears, right? Dealing with your fears and nurturing your ability to deal with those fears, whatever those fears are. So let's say, for instance, you have a sense that, well, the power might pop out. Well, get a generator. Oh, well, I don't know what's going to happen with the water situation. Stock up. Geez, what happens if the supply chain breaks down? Get more food, right? This is what Ceres in Scorpio does. It looks at the potential for catastrophe, because that's what Scorpio is engaged in. It wants to be in control. And the reason it wants to be in control is because it wants to take advantage of the situation once things go into chaos or spill into chaos. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing, there's a dark side to that. There's that dark, manipulative, scorpionic underbelly. It's like, okay, well, let's set out a bunch of chaos. And when people don't know up from down, then I'll move in and I'll, I/we, they, whatever, will come in and start to uh, marshal resources and psychologically and emotionally feed off of people. Like, that's really the dark side of Scorpio. The upside of Scorpio is that here with Ceres, you're not only looking after your own interests, but it's like, well, what happens to my family, or what happened? How can theoretically, the baseline is you got to take care of yourself. But there's also the other part is, and we'll see this as Pluto moves forward and gets closer into Aquarius, which it will once it goes direct, right? And it's about we're coming into a we phase. So here we go. Mars is in Scorpio, 8 degrees. We're going to get a Sun Mars conjunction, which hasn't happened for quite a long time. Think about that. It's very rare that Mars is in Scorpio during Scorpio season. So that's going to be a very, very interesting time. I think it happens at around 21 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. So puts it in the third decan of Scorpio, puts it in the Cancerian decan. And we're having the same discussion. We're having a discussion about, um, survival, all those things that are very, very Cancerian. The other thing, too, is about values. This is interesting because one of the things that we're seeing here with what's going on in the Middle East is, I'm hearing a lot of chatter. This isn't our war. It's not. It's not our war. That war belongs to, quote unquote, Israel and Hamas, which is metastasized. I'm going to get into the history of Israel and Hamas on 15 minutes. We're also going to look at the potential of what could happen in Iran, which is what really, I was watching Lindsey Graham last night on TV, not because I like Lindsey Graham, because I watched a little bit of Tucker Carlson on X. By the way, I predicted that's where Tucker would land and he would start this new media wave, which he has. And he had a clip of Lindsey Graham basically saying, we got to go into Iran and we have to decommission their ability to produce oil. That's huge because we don't want them to fund Hamas. Do you think stopping them and you could do, let's say Hamas is like a Hydra and has all these different tentacles. Who else funds Hamas? Well, Israel funded Hamas. And if Israel funded Hamas, we funded Hamas, just like we funded Al Qaeda, just like we funded the Taliban. We play those games. Hamas has a history of being connected to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is an offshoot of MI6, right? And British intelligence. So all these boogeymen that are out there were created and now they've metastasized, right? Like Hamas has become the golem who cannot be controlled now. That's exactly what Hamas is. It's a golem. It was created to take on the Palestinian Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat. It was created to divide and conquer the Palestinians. We'll get into more of this. But here we go. We're in this dark season now. And you got to have your high beams on, boys and girls. Got to have your high beams on. Got to put your radar up. Got to put your sonar up. And we're in a very edgy place. We're coming out of the hard square. Thank God. But we're still in it, right? We don't know what's going on behind the scenes because that's what happens with Scorpio. It's all cloak and dagger. It's all undercover. So this also resonates in your own life. Like, can you look around circumstances and situations in your life? And this is the challenging part because when you get into Scorpio, and I'm a Scorpio rising, so I understand this. I have Mars in the 8th house, so I understand this. You begin to look into the motivations of other people, right? And here's what happens. Quite often, if you can get through sort of the personal muck, quite often you're not wrong, right? You're not wrong, but you have to get through the personal muck, which means that number one, you have to dispel the fear, right? Whatever the fear is, and the fear is usually based on a perceived outcome that hasn't happened yet. That's what happens. That's how fear is created, right? It is a perceived outcome of something that has not yet occurred. Now, that perceived outcome might be true, right? Or it may not be true, but that's the nature of fear, the perceived outcome that something that might come true. So we're in this in our personal lives, and we're looking at motivation, who's doing what, what's behind the scenes. Can we trust other people? Right? The whole trust factor has just been absolutely shattered and broken. They call it the social contract, and the social contract extends out into the world, and it also moves into our own personal lives. Right? We have a social contract with each other. So the best relationships can withstand the shattered social contract, but relationships that are vulnerable, the shattered social contract will seep in. And so what do we have? We have suspicion, doubt, enmity, all those things. This is a very, very powerful time we're in. And Mars in Scorpio can be good for making changes, deep changes to your life. Like Mars in Scorpio theoretically is fearless. It's moving forward, like it's motivation and moving forward into the darkness. We have Scuba Kelly in chat, right? And there's metaphors for this, like in scuba diving, that plunging deeper into darker, colder waters, and not knowing necessarily where you're going, right? You're traversing the unknown, and that's where we are. We're traversing the unknown. We are in territory now. Like, we've had these skirmishes. They've happened in Israel before. 1967, 1970, I think it was 1974, 2016. The Israelis got their asses kicked. And they got their asses kicked in Lebanon. Totally got their asses kicked. So we've been in these places before, but this is different now, right? All right, so let's keep going. We got Venus in Virgo, which again is critical, right? This gets back to relationships, and it's hanging out way back here on the other side. We're in a really interpersonal and transpersonal phase for relationships. Venus and Virgo, we're looking at the purity of intent and motivation with other people in our lives. That's how it works. And we're trying it's in the second decan, which puts it in the Capricorn decan. Capricorn's utilitarian, functional. It's based on hierarchies. And it is coldly efficient. We won't get into the Tauran decan until we get into 20 degrees plus, right? And then relationships will take on a very different tone. But we're dealing with a coldly efficient Venus and Virgo, and it's trining Uranus and it's trining Jupiter. Both of them are retrograde. Do you want to make changes in relationship and partnership? You can, right? But with the retrograde, it's usually based on what you're not getting, which is one of the reasons why people make changes in a relationship anyway. So sometimes circumstances with the retrogrades can force us to make change. Black Moon Lilith is hanging out with Juno, and Juno here is in Virgo, which is about a birth, right? So with Juno and Virgo, it's a birth that's connected to things like, home births, or not vaccinating your kid after they're born, right? Or not getting an epidural. I mean, that's very Juno and Virgo, like the purity, like there's something important here. Now, Juno will pull away slightly from Black Moon Lilith because Lilith moves slow. Remember how long was in Leo, right? So, but here, this is a dark birth. It's a very dark birth. And when we think about, Virgo, we think about the birth of, theoretically, the Messiah born of a virgin, right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about the Middle East. We're talking about Jerusalem, Bethlehem, the sort of the birth of the New Testament and the Holy Land. It's all up here. So collectively, that's sort of in the crosshairs. Personally, Again, what are you trying to hatch? What are you trying to give birth to at this time? And when I see the Black Moon Lilith here, there could also be a lot of judgment, especially to me, Black Moon like it affects women and men equally, right? It is Black Moon Lilith has its own interpretation for women and men, but with women, it's about in my estimation, Black Moon Lilith is judgment, generally coming from other women. So if you're a mother, right, and you have kids, and you have young kids, and let's say you're doing something like, well, I don't want to vaccinate my kid, or I don't want to feed my kid genetically modified foods or whatever, expect a little blowback, right? That's the blowback. Oh, who do you think you are? Do you think you're, more pure and better than the rest of the other moms who did this shit? Right? It also goes back to mothers as well, Black Moon Lilith, right? Well, it goes back to mothers. And, living with my mother for the last few months has really gotten me in touch with some of the Black Moon Lilith stuff in my own chart. For men, it's a bit different, right? And then we see sort of the shadowy role mothers have played in our lives. And then we realize, for better or worse, they're humans and they gave birth to us. So this is a really interesting aspect, and it's going to linger for a while. The challenge with Virgo is Virgo, again, can be so critical and judgmental that you might miss the forest for the trees. Okay. Let's talk about this Moon Saturn conjunction. Whew. And it's in Aquarius. So we have, what's interesting is, I'm sorry, it's in Pisces. It was in Aquarius. So the moon was in Aquarius yesterday. So we have this interesting Moon Saturn, right? So with Moon Saturn, you essentially have the oppositional agency. Saturn opposes the moon. Saturn is Capricorn and the moon is Cancer, but they're working together here, right? These two forces are not, it's not sexy, right? Moon Saturn conjunctions are not sexy, but they have the potential of putting deeper roots in your life. That's the nature of Moon Saturn. It's one of those aspects that over time grows. And we're getting ready to have Saturn go direct here. It's winding back and going. I think it's November. What is it? November 14th. I'd have to go back and look. Where Saturn goes direct. So we're at the end of this. We're nearing the end of the Saturn retrograde cycle, and once it moves forward again, the second pass through with Saturn and Pisces is, I would say, imminently more powerful, because the retrogrades always get you aware of what's not working and how you need to fix things. It's like, oh, I thought I had this. Oh, guess I don't. Right. And then it moves forward. It's like, okay, we're, instead of tearing down, which Saturn retrograde will do, and we'll have two Saturn retrogrades in its transit through Saturn Pisces, and it goes through those transits, right, in the various decans. So this is in the Piscean decan. Then we'll have one in the Cancerian decan. Then we'll have one in the Scorpio decan. Tearing down, building back up. Tearing down, building back up. So the build back up or the build back better, hello, right, with Saturn and Pisces is looking at how you can build your faith. Because this is a demoralizing retrograde. Look around. It's fucking demoralizing out there. So you got to hang in there, right? Saturn is, the loneliness of the long distance runner. That's what it is. So today, we're looking around and we're looking at how, we can best emotionally influence these long-term processes or longer-term processes. I'll give you an example. Okay. This is an example. Personal life story. All right. So most of you know that we're moving, right? When I say we, what the cofactor in we is. I got a phone call from the insurance, the real estate agent yesterday, the guy who helped us buy this place, and we're having some work done on it. It's being painted, so we're not there right now, and that means that the blinds are down. Right, the blinds are down in the front because guess what? We're getting them replaced, and guess what? The room we got painted. That's why you take the blinds down. I get a phone call yesterday from the selling agent. The buyer's agent, who's my guy. He got a call from the seller's agent. Somebody in the fucking neighborhood complained to the seller's agent that the blinds are always down and the porch light isn't on a timer. Like, what the fuck? Right? What the actual fuck? And that was when the moon, right, was in the final degrees of Aquarius. It was yesterday. So what do you do when you're living around people? It's Aquarian, right? Because you're living amongst a group of people, even though you're not connected to those people. And I was pissed yesterday. So, of course, the person who's moving into the house with me, hello, the moon, got really down when she heard this. And I today it's like, look, we got to stay positive here. We can't let these people kind of browbeat us, because this is what happens. This is what happens in a chaotic world where the social contract is broken. People look around and there's nothing they can do about it. They see the borders bleeding like a sieve, right? They see all the hordes coming into the country. They can't do anything about it. The world is spiraling out of control. We're looking at war, most likely in the Middle East, right? They see all these things. The prime is up. Houses aren't moving. The world is out of control. So what do people want to do? They want to exercise control on a micro level. File that away. File that away, because again, what are we doing? We're looking at patterns. Looking at patterns around how people behave. Libra is a very psychological sign. A lot of people don't understand that about Libra. Libra is engaged in understanding other people's motivations as much as Scorpio is. So today, what did I do? I had to have the pep talk today. Hey, look, we can't let it get us down, right? You got to stay positive here, right? This is what I'm talking about. So the moon isn't quite in the full phase. When it is, we're going through a lunar eclipse, which I'm going to probably cover tomorrow or the next day. I'll probably cover it tomorrow. We'll look at the lunar eclipse coming up on Astro Weather. And the moon is squaring, right? It was squaring Uranus, so it was disruptive, and I experienced that yesterday with a stupid bullshit comment. It's like, get a fucking life, right? So, you here again, bringing it back to your life and your chart, or what's going on in the world, and that you can personally deal with this, right? You have to have some semblance of faith. What is Pisces about? It's about faith. And just today, wherever you are, that part of fortune is going to line up somewhere else. But just today, it's in the fourth house, and this is my personal bailiwick, right? Have a little faith, boys and girls, and nurture those seeds of faith. Stay positive out there, right? Everything is leaning like this trine with the sun trining into the moon, the sun trining into Saturn, Mercury trining into Saturn. With Scorpio, that's about focus. It's about will. It's about not letting somebody knock you off your block. Bottom line, that's what it's about. Not letting someone knock you off your block. And this is the inherent power in all of this. Stay focused, stay grounded, and water some seeds of faith. Don't let the small-minded miscreants of this world knock you off your block. Okay? Remember, a lot of these people are going to also be just manifestations. They're just manifestations, and you get to practice. You get to refine who you are in this world based on the miscreants of this world. Not a lot of error, so it's hard to get some objective space around all of this, right? Objectivity is a little bit difficult. So anytime you don't have objectivity, you can invite others in for perhaps a more objective perspective or point of view. And Libra invites that, right? That's how Libra works. Hey, what do you think about this? Am I being right? Is this wrong? What should I, am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? And when you do that, make sure you choose the right people. That's really important. Cultivate the right relationships. You do that, and that's the treasure and the gold in your life, is cultivating the right relationships. Okay, let's get out of here and let's do our star of the day, brought to you by True Hemp Science. Let's do a little True Hemp Science shout out here. And we'll do a little screenshot. Your one-stop shop for all things hemp-related, CBD. We're talking CBD, not hemp products. It's a hemp product, but It's not a hemp shirt or a hemp sweatshirt or a hemp hat or hemp cheese. Like we're talking CBD, and just absolutely awesome, naturally sourced organic CBD, organically sourced. It's all over the world. Chris has contacts all over the world, and this is where he gets his hemp from. He has a place where it's processed, and he does most of this by hand, right? By hand. So when you get these bottles, there's a very good chance Chris has labeled them. This is what we're talking about. We are talking about as Main Street as it gets, right? So he oversees everything from what kind of hemp is coming in, the CBD that comes out of it, the quality, the packaging, everything. So it may be a little bit more expensive than some other CBDs, but you're getting what you pay for. You're getting high quality CBD, and the organic gummies, whether it's the moon dust or the sleep gummies, are worth the price of admission. Trust me. And his CBD formulas, whether they're water soluble or oils, they will improve the quality of your life. And if you spend $100 or more, what will you get? You'll get free goodies. All you got to do is type in 15 mins. That's 15 MINS, 15 mins, and you will get, guess what? Free goodies. $150 or more, you'll get free shipping. Always a 30-day money-back guarantee. All right. Our true hemp science star of the day. And there's a rogues gallery today of people. Total rogues gallery. Who were some of the other choices I could have gone with? Let's see. Let me get my Drake. It's Drake's birthday today. Of course, Drake is a Scorpio. And Kanye is a Taurus, right? The Drake-Kanye beef was real for a while. Wasn't it? Like Scorpio-Taurus opposition. Hey, if they can patch things up, so can Israel and fill in the blank. Maybe we should send Kanye over there. Kanye, get on over there, broker a peace deal. We're about due for a new Kanye sighting. Okay, who else? Big Bopper, of course, he died in the plane crash with Buddy Holly. Who was the other guy that kind of fit the profile for today that we're going to look at? It wasn't Drake. Although Drake's a little bit of a little gangster, right? For a guy that starred on a Canadian kid show. Let's see. Who is the other person? The Krays. Yeah, I was going to do the Krays. You know, the Kray brothers, one of the scariest crime syndicates in England during the 60s because they were fucking pop stars. Like they were like this weird kind of West End pop star, psychopathic. They were twins, the Kray twins. Almost did the Krays, but I didn't do the Krays. So who am I doing today? You're saying, Robert, just fucking get to it. I'll tell you. Today's star of the day is none other than Scott Peterson. See how I did that? I changed it up a little bit. Got to change things up a little bit. Scott Peterson is our star of the day. Now, clearly, he's not our star of the day for his impeccable moral vicissitudes, right? No. Scott Peterson is the star of the day because we can derive something out of his chart. He was a creep. Scott Peterson was a creep. And what's interesting is that he has Neptune on the ascendant. So this is another variation of Neptune on the ascendant. Nobody knew who Scott Peterson was. Who knew what heart of darkness lie in the body of Scott Peterson? Right? For everybody else, he was like a pharmaceutical rep or something like that. You know, he had a wife, a child was on the way. Lacey Peterson was his wife. And Neptune on the ascendant can fool people, right? And not everybody that's Neptune on the ascendant is like that, but it can obscure the identity, right? So Scott Peterson was not who he said. He was not who he showed up as in his everyday life, right? He was a creep. Black Moon Lilith in the 12th house in what? Scorpio. Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio. I did a whole thing on Scott Peterson, Lacey Peterson. It's on the 11th house. I did a whole thing on Scott Peterson, and I combined the charts of him, Lacey, his lover. It's crazy, right? I'm not going to break all that down, but this is the shadowy planning that took place in Scott Peterson's brain, right? And then he's got this moon in Gemini. And of course, he has a yod to the moon. So he has the sun here in Scorpio. And on the other side, he's got Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio leaning into that yod. Actually, Jupiter leaning into the yod. Black Moon, the Mercury has its own yod to Saturn, right? So the moon is the mother, the woman. And he had two women in his life. And you could tell with Saturn in the 7th house that he felt constrained by it. And I think that who was it? Amanda, what's her name? Who was his lover? I don't think her hands were clean in this, by the way. She got off easy. She got off very easy, but you can just see it, right? You can see kind of the planning going on with that 12th house Mercury. Well, they just get her out of the way. I get rid of the kid and I can start a whole new life, which is very Scorpionic, right? Because Scorpio wants to kind of burn the past down and then move into this new future. And that's what Scott Peterson was trying to do. Look where the South Node is. The South Node is in Cancer. It's in his 8th house. What did he do? He killed the mother of his kid. Killed them both. Right? That's some 8th house shit right there. Scott Peterson, pretty fucking evil, actually. When you add it all up, and you have this, he has Mars. He has this very weird Mars conjunction with Uranus. So there's an impulsivity to Scott Peterson, and of course Mars is opposing Chiron in his chart. Hello, right? He's got Mars and Libra. Well, let me just balance the scales a little bit. Let me take Lacey out. And everybody knows me. They'll think I'm a good guy. And the arrogance that he displayed when he was in trial in court was just absolutely epic arrogance. And even Jupiter, right? Jupiter in Capricorn with that in conjunct with the moon. And then we have the sun in conjunct with the moon in Scorpio. This weird yod, right? The two women in his life. So, this is what happened. He hatched a plan. He hatched a plan to kill Lacey. That's what happened. Venus on his midheaven. I'm sorry, not on his midheaven, in his 10th house. So people have Venus in the 10th house are noticed. Whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you're noticed, right? So Scott Peterson was a guy, if you look at him classically, if you didn't know he was a creep, and you were in a bar, you're a woman, you might be attracted to Scott Peterson, right? You might be attracted to him. That's Venus in the 10th house. And then Neptune, he can become anybody you wanted him to be. That's also very Neptunian. Oh, who do you want me to be? I'll be that person. Until, of course, I don't want to be that person anymore. And then even with Pluto and Pallas, right? It's like, let's look at Lacey's daily routines. Let's look at Lacey's patterns, and let's do this thing accordingly. He's a total creep, and he comes up for parole every 5 or 6 years, and he's been denied parole ever since this thing happened. The weird thing about Scott Peterson is the predictive programming around him. Let me show you this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. He was, I gotta find this thing. Hold on one second. Let's see. Hold on one sec here. I've got a Demolition Man. I've always got a really good memory. For some reason, I always get Demolition Man confused with Running Man because they kind of came out around the same time. So there is some huge predictive programming in Demolition Man. If you know the movie, Sylvester Stallone is a cop who is cryogenically frozen, and they reanimate him so he can deal with Wesley Snipes, who was a world-class psychopath and somebody who Sylvester Stallone had originally put behind bars. But instead of putting these people behind bars, they just cryogenically froze them. Right. So what happens is that Stallone comes back from the past into this sort of weird world that looks a lot more like idiocracy than a totalitarian regime, which it really is in a lot of ways. And when Wesley Snipes reanimates his rogues gallery of criminals that can help him, one of them is Scott Peterson. This happened before Scott Peterson. This is the list, the cryopenitentiary, right? The cryopenitentiary. So Quentin Hyde, Scott Peterson, and Simon Phoenix. So in the movie, they're cryogenically resurrecting Scott Peterson to help Wesley Snipes' character wreak havoc and essentially take over the future because they're hapless. Like, it's a very, very weird predictive programming, piece of predictive programming. So there you go. There's your Astro Weather for today. And your star of the day brought to you by True Hemp Science, Scott Peterson. All right, come join me over on 15 minutes, and please hit the like. We are doing great work defeating the algorithms. We are at war with the algorithms, those little fucking invisible algorithms. So hit the like, and let's get this on other people's recommended list, so that we can actually grow Astro Weather a bit here. By the way, I'm like really appreciative that you guys show up here in the morning or late at night, wherever you're coming from, right, to watch this. When I started off doing it, I thought, I've been thinking about doing it for a long time, and I finally did it so that it could be a lead in to 15 Minutes of Flame, and it's helped, but it's really kind of grown on its own. And I'm really glad I did it. It doesn't take a lot of time. And I think it provides value to like your life and my life. And this is what we theoretically should be looking at. Like, what provides value? What provides value in your life, and how does that, again, that's all Libra stuff. And that's all Pallas conjunct Libra, right? Which is where it's at. And what does Scott Peterson have? Pallas conjunct the South Node in Libra, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? I think it is. I have to go back and look. Anyway, thanks again for being here. Thanks for supporting the show. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to say what's possible. Mods, thank you very much. Always appreciative of your time and your efforts. Come join us over on 15 Minutes of Flame. That's 15 minutes of OV Flame on Rumble, and we'll get into it. Take care. Bye for now.